Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I am Minister Marcus. Wherever you are, however you may be listening, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you are listening to me by way of podcast, I want to say thank you for listening. I have a great lesson for you tonight. It's coming out of Daniel. We're going to finish the lesson that I started last week. Some of you are going to get both lessons in one night. All right. So this lesson may not go the full 30 minutes, but this is the second end of the lesson that we did not finish last week. So if you're listening to me by way of podcast, you are going to get both of these lessons uploaded at the same time. So you didn't get the last one, but you are going to get it tonight. So if you have not went to go and listen to that, the lesson is titled Four Things for Your Spiritual Growth. All right. That is part one to this last lesson from Daniel. And this is going to be part number two. All right. So before we go into our lesson, I'm just going to bow. All of the things that you can go and look at are going to be in the description box. So make sure you read those and check those out. All right. So I'm not going to hold you long tonight. We're just going to pray and go right into our lesson. God, I thank you, God, for this opportunity. And I pray, God, that you would bless tonight. Bless this Bible study tonight. I pray, God, that you would lift my spirits, lift my energy up, God. I pray, God, that you would help me, God, to speak and teach with such articulation, God, that your people would understand. Pray, God, that you would help me tonight. Help me tonight. Help me tonight. Bless your people, God. Teach your people. Speak to my mind, God, that I may speak to them. Open up their ears, God, that they would hear. Open up their eyes, that they would get the right perception. Open up their mind, that they would understand. And then open up their hearts, God, that they would receive. Bless this word as it goes forth. Help it, God, to speak to us. Help it to guide us. Oh, God, help it to give clarity and give us a better understanding of you. Hear my prayer tonight. Hear my heart. Hear my spirit in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Tonight's lesson is coming from Daniel, chapter number 4. I'm going to begin at verse number 28. All right. Picking up where we left off from last week. I read a few more verses from last week. This week, we're going to the tail end of the chapter, verse number 28. But all these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, just look at this great city of Babylon. I, by my own mighty power, have built this beautiful city just as my royal residence and as an expression of my royal splendor. While he was still speaking these words, a voice called down from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you will eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. That very same hour, the prophecy was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like birds' claws. After this time passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshiped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting, and his kingdom is eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He has the power to do as he pleases among the angels of heaven and with those who live on earth. No one can stop him or challenge him, saying, what do you mean by doing these things? When my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and officers sought me out, and I was reestablished as head of my kingdom with even greater honor than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and true, and he is able to humble those who are proud. All right, I like that. I like that. I like that. All right. And so where we left off at last week, we left off talking about Daniel advising the king in response to his dream. And Daniel gave him some advice, and I'm not going to go into that. But if you want to hear about that, go and see the lesson before this one, or listen to the lesson before this one. But we concluded with Daniel advising the king, excuse me, to do things that he knew that God would respond to. In this lesson where we pick up at the end of Daniel's interpretation, and now these things have come to befall the king. And then it's 12 months later. And now, as Nebuchadnezzar is walking along in his palace, he makes the statement. But I want to start where we I want to start slightly where we left off from last week. How Daniel is able to interpret the king's dream and then advise the king on what to do to continue in peace and prosperity. And the only reason why I'm starting there is because I once again want to stress the importance of church, the importance of being able to hear God for your life. I want to stress that. Church is important because it's one of the ways that God speaks to us. It's one of the ways that we connect with God. Jesus says, I have come that you may have life more abundantly. We have church, but he speaks to us by way of church for our lives. And I want to stress that because Nebuchadnezzar has the dream, but Nebuchadnezzar cannot interpret the dream. In other words, God was speaking to him and God was moving in his life, but he couldn't interpret it or put it together. And I want you to understand, sometimes you are unaware that God is speaking to you or that God is moving in your life, and it needs to be pointed to you so that you know how to maneuver in your life. And I like to say it this way: God will guide you. Sometimes you don't know how to position yourself because you're not even paying attention that God is speaking. And I want you to get that. You will need clarity, you will need discernment, you will need the right perspective. And it's important that you are at a place where you can hear from God. I want you to understand God is speaking in your life, and you may be missing it. God is moving and acting in your life, and you may be misinterpreting it. And so I only start there to point out the importance of, if it's not church, Bible study, somewhere where you can hear someone to help interpret as God moves and dictates and guides and give clues in your life. He does not move like we anticipate him to move. He may not speak to you audibly. He's not going to do that. He's not going to come. He's not going to call you on the phone and tell you to make this decision or that decision. But he moves in subtle ways, and you need someone who is familiar with God so that they can tell you, you probably should align your decision this way or start moving in this way. And this is what Daniel does for the king. And so I start there, but now it's 12 months later. And I want to point that out, that God sent a warning 12 months before it actually happens. And I always say it this way: warning comes before destruction. Why does God warn? He warns so that you can make the changes to prevent certain things from happening in your life. He warns so that you can change things in your life to prevent certain things from happening in your life. 12 months shows you that God will give you a grace period. I like to stress that because so many times God is portrayed in our churches as though he's waiting for you to mess up. And as soon as you mess up, he's looking to chop you down. He's looking to destroy you. He's looking to punish you. But really understanding the God of the Bible, he sends warning 12 months before he actually allows it to happen to a king that doesn't even believe in him. Did you get that? He gives the king a grace period. It shows that God gives you time to make necessary changes. He understands that there are things that you've been doing for years before you met him, that there are habits that you have in your life that are hard to change, but he gives you a grace period, period of time for you to change some things and put some things in place. Now, I want you to get this. When judgment doesn't come immediately, it's easy to not move immediately. But I don't want you to get caught in the trap. I want you to hear me when I say that tonight. Because sometimes when God doesn't punish, you take that as a sign that God is not going to punish. But I want to stress that tonight. You cannot take God's grace for granted. If He has not moved in your life to punish or to chasten you, it's because He's given you time to get it right. You to understand this about God. He is not waiting to destroy you. He gets no pleasure from destroying your life. He gets pleasure from seeing that you're making the necessary changes so he doesn't have to send the judgment in your life. So 12 months later, how many times did you get the message but didn't make the changes? How many times did you know what God was expecting from you and you didn't make the adjustments? You didn't change your attitude. You didn't redirect your behavior. Sometimes God just sits back to see if you're actually going to put in effort to make the changes. He'll sit back and he'll watch. He'll warn you and then he'll watch you. He'll warn you and then he'll sit back and watch you to see if your efforts are you going to put your efforts into making the necessary changes. And here's what it is when you read the story. 12 months later, you see it's been 12 months and the king still has arrogance. It proves that the king had not made any efforts to change his behavior, even though Daniel had given him the interpretation of the warning that God was trying to get to him. And how many times do you get the warning? How many times do you understand that it's time to make changes and you don't make changes? And this is the king, Nebuchadnezzar. He believes that is his strength. He believes that it's his power. He believes that it's his army. And this is what I want to point out about that. Because if you read Isaiah, Jeremiah, if you read Ezekiel, where they had already gotten to captivity, but if you read the other prophets, Hosea, all of these other prophets, Zechariah, they all show that God had ordained and orchestrated Nebuchadnezzar to become a world power. But Nebuchadnezzar was not aware that his success was according to the purpose of God. And why is that significant? It's significant because there are times that God elevates you, or that God puts you in position, or that God blesses you bigger than you realize for his own purpose, but you don't realize it. And then you start to believe that you're there for yourself. You start to believe that you put yourself there, that your strength got you there, right? That your experience got you there. Right, you start to believe that it's you. And this is Nebuchadnezzar. You don't realize that God has put you there for his own purpose. And let me say that before we move on tonight, because I want you to understand this that all of the time when God elevates you, it's not just for you, but God has you in a position for his own purpose. But Nebuchadnezzar's statement showed that he believed his success was all because of him. Now, I want to point this out tonight. I want to point out that life is hard and it's not a bad thing for you to pat yourself on the back for overcoming or achieving one of your goals. It's not a bad thing for you to say, I did do a good job. I worked really hard. I'm glad that I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. You should give yourself credit, but also recognize it wasn't just you that made your success possible. It wasn't just you that made the elevation possible. It wasn't just you, but it was God working behind the scenes. Yes, reward yourself because you have to do your part, but don't overlook or deny that God had to do his part as well. This is what Jesus says: man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And it's Jesus giving you to understand the principle. It takes more than just the physical for your life to work, but it also takes God working behind the scenes to bring things together in your life. Whether you acknowledge it or not, God is working behind the scenes. You have strength, but your strength alone didn't get it for you. You have work ethic, but your work ethic didn't get it for you by itself. But it takes God giving you grace. It takes God giving you favor with the right people. It takes God ordering and orchestrating some things to go your way so that the blessing can happen for you. But Nebuchadnezzar does not get it. He does not get it. He believes it's all him. And how many times have you messed up something in your life because you feel like you put yourself there? Relationships that you get in, that you feel like you are the best, you are the cat's meow and the dog's bow wow. And I want you to get that. I got that from Noel Jones. That you feel like it's you. You got this promotion because it's you. You're with this person because it's you. You this or that because it's you. Not realizing that God may have you in that position for his own purpose. Nebuchadnezzar does not get it, and he responds with his arrogance. And how does God respond to arrogance? Even though he is the king, when pride gets in his heart, God has a problem. And I want you to get this. God dislikes pride without respect of your status. You can be poor and arrogant, just like you can be rich and arrogant. And God don't like either one of them. The attitude is pride. And here's what: when you exalt yourself, what we learn about God from the Bible is that God will base you. In other words, he'll bring you low. He'll knock you down. He'll humiliate you. He'll put you flat on your back because you've gone too far. Sometimes when you elevate yourself, God has to show you how much power you don't have. Get it? The dream was the warning, but now God allowed it to happen because God sometimes has to teach you what he has been trying to tell you. And how many of you can say that God did give me the warning? I knew that God was telling me to change, but I didn't change. And then consequence happened. I want you to hear me that God loves you just enough to send consequence to teach you the lesson that you wasn't listen to when he was trying to talk to you. I want somebody to hear me when I say that tonight. 12 months later, the king loses his mind. He removed the king's mental ability to handle his business. And I want you to get this. It's God's way of showing the king you can have the best body in the world. You can have the most money in the world. You can have the biggest house. But if God was to just touch your mind would unravel. Your mind is one of the most important things about you. And I want you to hear me when I say this. This is why you can't get caught up on the physical because God controls the immaterial things. It's just like not having oxygen. No matter how much money you have or don't have, if you don't have oxygen, no matter how rich you are, no matter how poor you are, no matter what kind of car you drive, you will not survive. It's the same way with God. Even though you can't see him, he controls things about your life that you don't realize when you get lifted up in pride. And it is God's way of showing the king that he is real and he controls more than the king realizes. And ain't that real about God? Ain't that so real about God that sometimes God will teach you the lesson that he controls more than you realize, that he handles more than you give him credit for? And I want you to hear me before we go on tonight. Beware of pride. When you lift yourself, God will knock you down. And I always say it like this: don't forget to thank God for working behind the scenes of your life. Yes, you did a good job, but you didn't do that on your own. I want you to get that. And what does God do? God could have destroyed him. God could have demolished him. God could have killed him. But God intended to teach him this a lesson in humility. Get that? He wanted to teach him a lesson in humility. Sometimes God sends you through a period of punishment to make you evaluate your perspective, to make you evaluate your disposition, to make you evaluate your mindset, to make you evaluate the way you've been living your life. I want you to get that tonight. Sometimes God takes you through a period of punishment, not because he wants to destroy you, because he wants you to understand that there are some things about your inner man that needs to be changed. You may have to experience being knocked down so that you can remember to humble yourself when God raises you back up. This this is what he says. He says, until you know that the Most High rules, until you understand that the Most High is sovereign, until you, sometime God have to send you through a period of punishment, until all the arrogance is gone, until all the immaturity is gone, until all I want you to get it tonight, until all of the foolishness in your heart is gone, until all of those crazy decisions in your mind are gone. Sometimes God leaves you in to endure a thing until you reach a desired result, until the unforgiveness is gone from your heart, till the bitterness is gone. He leaves you in the period of punishment until you're no longer selfish, until all your ego is gone, until you're no longer greedy, until you're no longer arrogant. Are you hearing what I'm saying tonight? Sometimes God leaves you in a period of punishment until you learn that you can't be prideful. Until you know, God knows when to put you in and he knows when to take you out. He won't take you out until you're ready. He says, when I lifted up my eyes, then I understood. And God said, I was going to leave you there until you understood, until you know. And somebody need to hear my words tonight. Sometimes God leaves you in a situation until you calm yourself down, until you understand, until you get it, until you understand why you got to control yourself, until you understand why you can't act the way that you have been acting anymore. He will send you through a period of punishment until you get to the desired result. And how many of you are still in something because you're being stubborn? Because you won't acknowledge that your actions have been wrong. Until how long will you stay in? Because you won't acknowledge that you are the issue, that you are the problem. This is what the old folks say: not my mother, not my father, not my sister, not my brother, but it's me, oh Lord. Until God will leave you in there, until you recognize that you are the problem in your own life. And then when he raises up his eyes, he respects God. When he lifts up his eyes, he comes and returns to his right mind. Don't God know how to bring you back to yourself? Sometimes God will allow you. This with the prodigal son. He wasted all his money on riotous living, and then the story says when he came to himself. Sometimes God will send you through something to make you evaluate the way you've been living, evaluate the decisions you've been making, evaluate the people you've been hanging around, evaluate why you've been allowing your life to go a certain way. When he evaluated his own, he lifted up his eyes to heaven. And this is what the story says, that Nebuchadnezzar begin to reverence and respect God. I believe this was the point, the first four chapters of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar in the fourth chapter, now he's been in contact with Daniel's God. In chapter one, he realized that the brothers and the friends and Daniel were more respectable. If you remember lesson one, that God had blessed them, right, to be more wise, to be more physically in shape than all the other men. They had different types of understanding, and he praised God for it. Then in chapter two, the dream, how God interprets a dream. He tells him the dream, and then he interprets the dream. He comes to praise God. The three Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace, he comes to praise God. But in this fourth chapter, he comes to reverence and respect God. Get it? That God changed his perspective about him. Nebuchadnezzar is writing this fourth chapter in the book of Daniel to let the world know about his mind changing experience with God, his life changing experience with God. The once proud and irrational king has been changed. And I want you to hear me when I say that tonight. I want you to hear me when I say that tonight. That sometimes God, he works to get your mind to change. Then when your mind changes, then you understand. People ask me all the time, Marcus, how do you know that God is real? Me personally, I know God is real because he changed the way I think. No person on earth could do that because I was stubborn. No person on earth could change my perspective and change my heart. But God did it. When God does something like that inside of you, get this, the book of Daniel is about Daniel's visions. It's about Daniel and his three friends, Daniel in the lion's den. But this fourth chapter is written by a king who is not a Jew, who is not of Hebrew descent, but he writes because he has a life changing experience with Daniel's God. And I want you to get this. Only God can change those things about you. Now, that's what I want to point out about the lesson tonight. Nebuchadnezzar has been touched and changed by God. When you know God is real, you know God is real when he changes your mind and he changes your heart. Did you know that God wants to change the way you think? He wants to change your perspective and how you see life. He wants to change the way you see your problems. He wants you to change the way you see yourself. You will know he is real when he comes and makes the change on the inside. Only God can change things about you that you couldn't have changed about yourself. And then you will know. And this is what the king is saying. He's saying, I'm writing so that the world will know that nobody, no other entity, no other person, no other God is like Daniel's God, because Daniel's God accomplished something that nobody else could accomplish. And he accomplished it, get this, in me. Now, understand this before I go offline tonight. The king is a rich man. The king is the most powerful person in all of the world at this time. But God changes him, and it makes all of the world the difference. And I say that to say this, that too many times we put the emphasis on the external things, not realizing the most powerful thing that God can do to show his power is to change the internal things. And I say it like this: you want God to change your outside, but you don't realize that God wants to change your inside. And if you let God change your inside, you'll be able to change, come on, your outside. And so tonight, that's all I have for you. I hope something that I said was able to help you. I told you it wasn't going to be a long lesson tonight, but I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are looking for a place to learn and grow in God, visit our website. If you want to become a Christian, you can say right where you are, God, I believe that Jesus died for my sins, and I believe that you resurrected him from the dead, and our church is here to help you get a closer relationship with God. So with that, guys, that's all I have for you tonight. Please visit our website, thegodmovement.com. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. It was great to see you once again tonight, and I hope to see you guys next week at 7:30 for Bible study. I want to say God bless y'all once again. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all have a blessed night. Thank you so much for watching, or if you're listening, I want to say thank you as well. Never miss a Bible study or a sermon when you subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, tap the bell so you never miss when I post.